Right, you're gonna have to deal with the weirdness. You're gonna have to deal with the weirdness, everyone. Sorry. It does this weird thing where that if I use my feed, I can't use it elsewhere. I don't know why. But welcome. Welcome, 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 welcome. How are we all doing on this lovely December, mid-December afternoon or evening in some places? Technical issues always. Well, yeah. I'm trying to fix my OBS at the same time as having it not to crash. It's fine. Yeah. It's because like I normally have like a software on that dampens the audio because I don't know if you can hear like my jet engines in the background. But yeah. If I'm too loud or just turn it down. Yeah, I know. I'm just like it's so close to Christmas now. It just needs to be the weekend and then that's it. We're already there. So that's what I'm just thinking. Yeah, no, it's meant to be a circle, but sometimes OBS screws up my mask that I put onto my thing. So it looks like this weird keyhole shape. So I look like I'm peeping through your door hole. It's so weird. And also as well, I think my camera's a little bit too high. That's better. I don't know. I went to Black Hat London, and like when I come back after going away with the company, like everything's just messed up. So you gotta deal with it, and hopefully that you can't hear my jet engines too loud. But welcome everyone. If you haven't taken the time to read the title of this live stream, we are going to be going over how to set up an SSH Tarpit on your server. So does anyone in the chat know what an SSH Tarpit is, or what the main premise of it is meant to be? I need to zoom in this, like YouTube chat is so weird. Like it's like on a 4K monitor, it's like nothing. I can't see it. Yeah, I use OBS currently. We used to use a platform called Livestorm, but their client just did not like my Linux server or my Linux host. It just bugged out. But yeah, okay, so if you don't know what an SSH Tarpit is, it's basically a TCP, like an SSH server-esque, which is basically running on a port. In this example, I'm going to be binding it to port 22, the default port. And somebody in the security research field basically found out that if you send a endless banner, so what a banner is when you try to connect to a SSH server, the SSH server will reply with a banner which will basically tell you what kind of authentications does it accept, what keys does it, like what cipher suites it accepts. However, the security researcher found out that if you just never finish giving this banner, then the client is basically stuck in this massive loop. So I'll show you what it looks like from the actual end server, but the premise is that we're going to bind it to port 22, and then we're going to move our actual SSH server to a different port on it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to move the SSH port. So if you already have a server set up like I do here, and if I do UFW status, I want this to be like close to realistic of how somebody might come into this like webinar. So I have a server here which is the only open port is SSH on here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pick a port that we want to move our SSH server to. So I normally, this is the way that I do it, is I just take 1024, which is the megabytes for, or the bytes of RAM, and then I just times it by, so if I want 4 gig of RAM, I know I will put it onto 4096. That's how I normally remember my stuff. If you want to use it the same way as I do, then you could just say, okay, I'm going to put it onto port 4 gig, which is 4096. That's the way that I do it. Just a little trick. So if you try and hack me, it might be one of those ports. But we are first going to allow the 4096 port. So UFW allow 4096. If I do UFW status, you'll see that I am allowing 4096. You could be a little bit more specific and do /TCP. I think that is the way to do it. Let's just double check that the command is set up correctly. Okay, yeah, so you can see here that because we didn't specify TCP or UDP, the UFW has just added both. It's not too much of a hassle just to go through and change it if you want to, but I'm lazy, so I am not going to do that. Okay, so now we are going to use everyone's favorite text editor, Vim, and we're going to go to the SSH configuration. So there's the Vim etc SSH, and then I have a cough from the Black Hat. So somebody at Black Hat was obviously infected, and they infected all of us. So I've got a little bit of a cough still, so you might see me tap off my mic. So if you see if it's red here, it should be fine once I turn it back on. So if we go to Vim etc SSH and then SSHD config, so this is the configuration of SSH server, and the top line here is port. Yeah, I use Vim. So the port here will basically tell it which port the SSH will bind to. So I'm just going to change this to be 4096. Because that's the port that I've allowed, and that's the port that I will be connecting on from here on out. Okay, and if we now do systemctl restart sshd and SSH, if we now do sudo sslntp, we'll now see that you have SSH, which is bound to the port of 4096. Before I'm going to configure Endless SSH, which is the SSH Tarpit, I'm just going to disconnect from this server. I'm then going to bring up the command, and then I'm going to give it a TACP, which is port, and I'm going to put 4096. And now you can see that connecting on that port has now worked. So there you go. That's the way that you can change the SSH port. Okay, so at the moment, obviously I've just changed SSH. I don't even have CrowdSec installed or anything. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run the Endless SSH. So the guys over at linuxserver.io, they have a Endless SSH image that they host. So I'm just going to go pull that image from there. So if I do docker pull, and it's just basically LSCRO, you know, the Linux server guys. I'll put this in the chat so you guys can go and have a look at it. So I'm just going to pull their Endless SSH image. Okay. And then I'm just going to bring up the last command again. However, I'm going to run the image instead. I'm going to run it in detached mode. So -d. I'm going to give it a name of Endless SSH. The reason that I want to give it a name is when I configure CrowdSec and I want to look at the logs of the Endless SSH server, if I have a name parameter, it's just a lot easier than trying to find the random one that it generates on the fly. Okay, so we got that. I'm going to tell it to RM, so /rm, just because if I tell it to quit the container, because it's obviously not vital for the system to be running, I just want to tell it to remove just for now, so just so I can make sure that the configuration is correct. And then I'm going to map some ports, and I'm just going to map port 22 to port 22222, which is the default for Endless SSH. And okay, so I'm just going to run that, and then if I do docker ps-a, you'll now see that I have obviously my port set up that goes to this port, and that I have Endless SSH running. So if I do docker logs Endless SSH, you'll now see that I have it all running, and all the logs are going to the container SD out. So you can already see that we already had somebody connect already. I've only just run it for a second, but on this terminal, I'm just going to show you what actually happens on the end of a user when they connect. So if I do SSH and then user at localhost, and then I give it attack VV, so that's for very verbose, you'll now see that I'll join the server, and that in 1 second you'll see the banner starting. Okay, so you see here where it says key exchange identifier banner line 0 is D00. This is just the gobbledygook that the banner is giving out. So you can see here more just garbage, and the reason being is that whenever you connect and you don't have the TAC VV on, you'll see that there's actually no prompt that comes up. And this is the aim of the SSH Tarpit, is just to get users who obviously don't know that your actual SSH is running on 4096, that it's actually stuck on there. I don't know if is that all okay? Is everyone okay with that? I thought I'd give that a little bit of explanation, because like people run SSH Tarpits, but they don't actually know what it does under the hood. Okay. So now, if I do sudo ss lntp, you'll now see that I have 4096, which is my real SSH server, and then my port 22, which is a Docker proxy, but it's a proxy to Endless SSH. So we are now just going to install some CrowdSec on here, because I want anyone that connects to the Endless SSH server to trigger a ban for all my other ports. So if they did try to go to my actual 4096 port, they won't be able to. So we're just going to download the package account script like usual, get that installed. Okay, and then we're going to do apt install CrowdSec, as well as we'll do the firewall bouncer in a minute. Okay. Okay, so what you'll see is, because of the way that the wizard does the auto detection, it won't be able to detect anything that's running inside Docker, so it won't automatically configure Endless SSH. So we'll have to do that manually, which is quite easy. So I'm just going to make dir tacp to etc CrowdSec and then acquis.d just to create the acquisition directory. We are then going to head to hub.crowdsec.net, and then we're going to grab the Endless SSH collection, which is just CSCLI collections install CrowdSecurity / Endless SSH. So we'll get that installed. Okay, and then once that's done, we then need to set up the acquisition to use the Docker module to go and get the Endless SSH stuff. So we're going to vim etc crowdsec acquis.d, and then we're going to call it endless ssh.yaml. I'm going to paste in the example from the documentation of Endless SSH. However, this won't work for our use case because we're taking it from the Docker acquisitions. So we're just going to go and grab that now. Okay, so I'm just going to delete these two lines at the top, and then I'm just going to paste in the stuff. Okay, so we don't need regular expressions because we know what the container name is. So we're just going to do container underscore name. The source will be Docker, and because we gave it a name of Endless SSH, we can just put Endless SSH within the container name because that's the name of the container. Okay, so if we then do systemctl restart CrowdSec, okay, and then if we do if we cat var log crowdsec.log, if we look on here, we should be able to see here. So look, you can see a line that says start the tail for container Endless SSH. If you see this log line, that means it's managed to find the container name is called Endless SSH, and now it's basically pulling in the log lines every 10 seconds or every second to check, obviously, if there's any new lines for it. So if I do CSCLI metrics, you'll now see that I have the source is Docker : Endless SSH, and there's already people that are being tracked via the tarpit of Endless SSH on there. Okay. However, those users won't be blocked from my other ports because I haven't installed the remediation component. So I'm just going to go and grab the install for the firewall bouncer. I'm just going to paste that in. So I'm just going to do IP tables because I'm using UFW anyways. Has this been alright so far, or no one said anything in the chat, so I don't know if I'm either not live or or going too fast. I'm gonna take a quick drink. God. Okay, so because we've now installed the firewall bouncer, if we now do IP tables tag L, you'll see on the input stage there's a drop, anything that matches the CrowdSec block list. However, some of you may already know that this will not work for Docker because Docker has its own NAT table set up, network address translation. Yeah, it's still possible to participate. There'll be a recording of this that will get uploaded probably sometime over Christmas. I need to find some time to do some rendering. But the reason that I don't go and change the bouncer configuration to turn on the forward, the Docker user change, is because when I'm running a tarpit on my service, I want to make sure that I waste as much time as possible from the people that go to the tarpit. So I do not turn on the Docker user chain. If you want to completely block them from the service, like the Endless SSH service as well, you need to uncomment this Docker user. So it will make sure that the rules will apply to the Docker users as well. However, I don't want to do that. So now if I do CSCLI metrics, yeah, we're still getting people connecting to the Endless SSH server. So if we do docker logs endless SSH, you can see here that we have tons of people connecting, disconnecting, connecting, disconnecting as we want, but they're not actually going to the real SSH server, which is running on 4096. So that is pretty much the setup. It's just using the Docker network address translation just to hide, obviously, the fact that they can keep connecting to this port. However, if you do want to obviously block them from it, you just need to change the configuration to turn that option back on. Okay. So okay. Does anyone have any questions? If not, it's fine. Yeah, I keep coughing. It's so bad. Okay. So that's pretty much what all I wanted to show you. Because like after this, it's pretty much that the NSSH will keep doing its thing. People will still keep connecting. Yeah. Have a good Christmas. Yeah. I still need to get some more presents, but all clear. Good. I can sneak in some extra stuff if you wanted to, because I've got an hour slotted out for this, but obviously it does go quite fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upgrade this installation to the release candidate and show off some new features. So what are we going to do? Let me go to package cloud and we'll go to the testing branch. Because I know that a lot of people are cutting it a bit late. We're always oh yeah, I know what you mean now. I was like, cool, what a bit late. Do you know what? I'm so not used to, like, on Livestorm there was like about a 5-second delay from when you talk and someone obviously chats. But on YouTube, the way that I got it set up is it's about 30 to 40 seconds when I say something and someone says something in chat. I'm just like, what the hell are you going on about? But okay, so if I do apt upgrade, you'll see that my IP tables want to update as well. No, I don't want to update my IP tables, not yet. So if I do, it's apt install CrowdSec equals 156-RC4. Damn it. Is it the funky thing? Yeah, that's the one. Okay. I just want to update just one, not the other. Okay, so now I'm installing the preview version of CrowdSec. So I'm not going to show you the AppSec component or the WAF in this because it will be way too much to set up, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to show you one feature that I think is quite useful. When setting up notifications, we had a lot of user feedback that it was very difficult to test the configuration of the notifications, because you would have to either have a notification that you've had before that you want to re-inject. So if I do CSCLI version now, I should hopefully be on the release candidate. Yep. So CSCLI notifications has added a test command. However, this test command doesn't just work for live configuration, it also works for pending configuration that you've got. So what I'll just do an example. So if I vim etc CrowdSec notifications, you'll see here that I have email, HTTP, whatever. You'll see. So you see here, I've got a HTTP URL. I can just change this to like https google.com as an example, and then I'll change it to a GET request. So obviously whenever I test this configuration, it will make a GET request to Google. However, I just want to show you that in my profiles, profiles.yaml, I don't have this notification is not turned on. So if I do CSCLI notifications test, and then if I provide the name of http_default, you'll now see that it returned the non-service code of 400, so it obviously sent the request. But it's basically to show you that you don't have to have the notification turned on to use the test command. You can just send a generic test. I think Google's probably blocking it because I've got some body in the GET request. But this is just to show you. I can even show you if I SSH into the server again, and if I apt install netcat, netcat openbsd. Don't know why there's two versions of it. But if I change the configuration now, HTTP, and if I use my really fast skills of going to HTTP and then obviously the netcat port I just set up, if I send the test again, you'll now see that I get the HTTP to the test one. And then obviously again error on the other side because it's not actually a real HTTP server. But that's just to show you that you can test your configurations now without having to have them live and then possibly screw up on it. Okay, I think I am going to wrap this up here. If anyone else has got anything else to say. But Merry New Year, yes. Happy Christmas, everyone. Or well, happy holidays, as we should say. If you haven't already, if you don't already know, If you head to the console and your profile section of your console account now, you can sign up to the beta. So I'm going to show this on my screen. Hopefully I don't leak my email address. Yeah, I haven't tested it, so I don't know. So if you go to app.crowdsec.net and you sign up for a console account. Oh god, did not mean to do that. So the logging with Google is a sneaky button that you shouldn't know about, which is coming soon. But let me just turn myself into anonymization mode. Hopefully it helps. So when you're inside your console account, if you go to the main profile button and then go to your account settings, if you head down a little bit, you will now see there's a beta program. So you can opt in for the beta program. The first one that we're going to be running is the WAP/WAF. So it means you'll get a invite with a bunch of documentation, a bunch of resources that you can use to make sure that you get the WAF AppSec component up and running on your servers. You'll also be invited to a Discord channel that you can join and talk to others about the component and obviously have fun with using unreleased features. So I thought I'd just bring this in there because if you missed our Twitter, or you're not on Twitter, or X as they call it nowadays, then you might have missed it. But I will be uploading this re-recording probably sometime next week. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'm going to be now switching back to the annoying music for about a minute. So I'll see you everyone. Thanks for tuning in.